Thank you, Nut. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. One more time. Good morning, everyone. Okay, cool. Just to help each other. Hey, help each other wake up. So good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. I'm very excited. Normally, I would probably do like more of an intro, talk about our center, blah, blah, blah. But time is so precious because what we're about to do normally, I often do sometimes in over several days, sometimes several weeks or even months. So the objective here is to compress it and deliver to you as much as we possibly can in just 2 hours. So it's going to be a very mini compressed version, right? So for that reason, I want to talk and lecture as little as possible, and one of the best ways for you to learn this stuff is to experience it. So we'll get rid of all the lecturing and go right to doing, okay? However, before we do, one thing is I'd like to ask for you to please consolidate tables so that you have it six or as close as possible to 6 people per table. So those of you who are in these smaller groups, can you please go find some tables that have some extra space? Like maybe some over here, because we've only got 3 people here. Okay. You looking for it? You can do what over here? Great, thank you. Thank you. Okay, looks good. All right, so we're really going to jump right into it. So design thinking, in case for some of you, if you haven't seen it, is usually characterized by these steps right here. There's certainly more to it, but this is one of the most concise ways to represent what it's about. So these processes going from empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So again, let's do stuff and then we'll talk about it afterwards, okay? So for the doing, we're going to begin with this empathize phase. I'd like to bring up one of my team members, Koichi. Koichi, where are you? Koichi, come on up, please. Everyone give a round of applause for Koichi, our project manager. And let's go up here. Oh, and one more microphone here. That's fine. Okay, so the context, just before we jump into this, I can tell you briefly that what you're going to do today is, as a teams, you're going to develop essentially the design for a new application. And it's going to be an application that helps people to schedule meetings between large groups of people. Some of you might recognize that there are some tools out there in the world that do this, but many people, probably most people here, haven't used those. And even if you have, there are maybe different ways that you might be able to design it, okay? So the context is that, but what I'm going to do here is demonstrate the first phase of design thinking, which is empathize. So we've picked a person here who has probably experienced this issue before, or this, what you call job to be done. So I'm going to pretend like we're a giant startup, and I've just asked for his time, and I'm going to sit down and get to know his situation. So the thing I want you to do while we're going through this is closely observe the interview and take notes. So take notes on what we call the customer journey. So try to kind of keep track of the story that he's telling. What did he do in his experience? Write down some key quotes, things that capture your attention you think that are important points that he says. And emotional high and low points. That includes definitely, especially pain points or moments of delight, if those exist as well. Okay? So take lots and lots of notes, and you're going to do some stuff with them afterwards. All right. Okay, ready?
Sure.
All right. What's your name?
I'm Koichi.
Hi, Koichi. I'm Sam. Thanks so much for sharing some of your time today. I'm working on a product idea, but today I'm not here to sell it to you. So I just really want you to feel relaxed. That my objective is more to learn about your behavior and your potential needs so that if I do create this thing, hopefully it might be helpful to you.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
So first thing is, if you think back to the last couple of months, were there any times that you had to schedule some kind of meeting or event between like a lot of people?
Yeah, actually just a couple of days ago.
Okay.
And a couple of days before that as well.
All right. Okay. So just a few days ago.
Yeah.
And can you tell me sort of a story about how you did it? What happened? What was the context?
Okay, sure. So the context was I have some people who always wants to meet my kind of boss, right? So every time when something like that happens, what I'll have to do is get the schedule from my boss first, who's like the most busy person out of both parties, right? So I'll have an idea of when, my boss is free, it's like certain times, and then I propose those time slots to the other party. Then when they give their response, I'll then go to my boss and say, are these times okay? I checked earlier and it was still free. And then if my boss says sure, then I'll book them in. A lot of the times, the initial check is just based on, his calendars or Calendly or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned that something about Calendly. What was that?
Yeah, it's like an existing application where a person puts in kind of like the times they're free, and then someone can go on that and book on that, and then that time slot will be just disappears. So the next person will see the remaining time slots.
Okay. Okay. And then can you paint a more detailed picture about the actual communication? So it sounded like you said you talk to your boss, you get essentially their availability through this tool, but then you're still talking to these other people. So can you break down that journey a little bit?
Sure. So someone will come to me and say, hey, I'd like to meet with your boss. And I'll say, sure, let me check for his available times. I don't want to just go straight up to him and ask him when he's free because, he probably has a lot of little different meetings here and there. So I'll just get an idea first from the Calendly app. Right. The issue there is it's not always accurate. So sometimes I'll pick a certain time and it'll turn out it was already booked. It just didn't go through that platform. So the platform didn't know it, so it's still available there, when in reality it isn't. So it's one of those issues where if I pick certain times when it's not actually available, I'll go back without knowing to the team or the other side. They'll tell me they want to get that slot, and then go to my boss, and then he'll say, actually that slot's already taken. And it's like, then I have to go do the same process again of getting the time from the Calendly, going back to the team, and then going back to my boss. It's kind of like hoping both sides are okay without really knowing until the very end for the confirmation.
So if you were to sort of summarize the pain there or the difficulty, what is that?
I'd say it's the uncertainty with the available times and the fact that I have to be the middleman because, well, if everyone uses Calendly, I wouldn't have to be there, but not everyone uses it, so I have to be there to kind of guess from Calendly first and then kind of communicate both ways. So it becomes a lot of kind of annoying work to get, what's it called, like jappu saikadong,
Put a crab in a...
Yeah, because they always like run off on the other side, so you have to kind of like get it just right, yeah.
Okay. Can you give an example of another situation? Maybe something, is it always using this Calendly approach? Are there some other situations where there's some other tool?
No, that's when one person is kind of like prioritized. So when I'm trying to hold a meeting with a lot of people who are like really busy all the time, the thing is they're not very often free at the same time. So then that becomes an issue of their flexibility of willingness to give up one meeting for maybe my meeting if no one else is free at any other times. So then that becomes an issue of having to actually talk to everyone at the same time. So I can't just go to each individual person, or sometimes I have to, but then it becomes, a really long-winded kind of thing of, are you free here? And then he'll say, only Tuesdays on 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And then the next person says, I'm never free on Tuesdays. It's, but you need both of them because they're both, you can't prioritize the other person saying, you have to turn up because this is the person in charge. That kind of thing.
So let's walk through this second case. If you can kind of paint a picture for us of the detailed journey, right, step by step. So can you think of one of these meetings that you had to put together?
Yeah, so let's say a really real example is for a project, we're trying to get a sponsorship or we're trying to go meet a sponsor. And in order to do that, I had to bring in pretty much, the kind of senior people in my kind of center or the people involved. I can't just turn up by myself and say, hey, can I have some money? So I had to bring in, well, my boss and the person who founded my center and the person who founded the kind of event, the project. So there's like 4 or 5 people from my side where I had to first find that date. And then I had to then take this date and propose to the sponsor, like the person who can say yes or no to giving us a lot of money, who's also, really busy. So it becomes like not even just internal, but also external. So what I'll do is I'll first start asking people inside, and I'll get maybe, if I'm lucky, 2 or 3 dates, and then I'll ask the external sponsor, so I can get a feel like when they're free, and then it'll usually be like, a couple of weeks ahead. Then I'll take these dates and then come back to the people inside, who everyone has to turn up. And then sometimes a person will have to make a sacrifice of, actually, I'll go to this instead of, this other meeting I had. So someone will eventually have to make a compromise, is what I've noticed, unless you're really lucky. But you're not usually lucky.
So bringing that to the beginning, you said that you started with talking to those couple of internal stakeholders. You said 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
And you come up with a couple of dates first, is that correct?
A couple of potential kind of, I wouldn't say exact dates, it's more like when would be the optimal week.
Oh.
Because it's kind of like, I don't want to pick specific dates and then go to the sponsors and then have it match. It's not very likely.
Okay.
So it'd be more getting the specific dates from the sponsors in those kind of rough weeks.
Okay, so again, you're talking, let's say, to the 2 or 3 internal stakeholders first. That literally, what is that? Did you bring them together in a meeting? Are you on a conference call? Did you email them all? Like, what's the channel of communication? What's happening there?
Usually the fastest way, because people aren't always on the same platform, it will be, well, not the fastest way, but the most obvious way is email.
Okay.
It's actually kind of the slowest way. But if I were to send it on WhatsApp, a couple of people who are on the group wouldn't read it. So it's kind of like, I will send an email, and then I'll sometimes send a WhatsApp message with the caption of the email saying, hey, have you guys seen this email? Are you guys free?
Okay.
Yeah.
So step 1, send email to internal stakeholders, take a screenshot, send it in
To the
WhatsApp
WhatsApp.
to the same people to make sure that
It's a
all
lot
of them see
faster
that.
if they do use WhatsApp to see a WhatsApp message. Right?
Okay.
But if they don't, then it's super slow.
All right. Then what happens next?
Then hopefully I get responses
Okay.
from the group. If not, I have to individually go into each person and say, hey, you're free, hey, you're free, hey, you're free.
All right.
Sometimes it goes down to that.
Okay.
But,
And then at that point, eventually you get an answer of what kind of answer?
usually I'll get a kind of set of dates, not like one specific ones, just kind of like ones that still people are available.
All right.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
I use that, move it forward.
Okay. Okay. Then what's next?
Then I'll go talk to my coworker and say, hey, when is the other sponsor free? Because I'm usually not the main contact person.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have another coworker who talks to the sponsor.
Yeah, the main
Right.
contact person isn't me with the sponsors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens then? You talk to that person, and then
That person comes back and tells me, yep, he's free this week, that week, for this time and that time. And then I match it up, and then I go back, and then I say, this is when we're going to meet. And then the other person goes to confirm on the day.
okay. So the sponsor comes back with multiple dates or one date?
Usually only 1 to 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then so you get that back from your colleague, and then you do what?
And then hopefully it matches to the kind of times that they were free and say, this is actually the best we can do with the sponsors. Because in the end, I do have to prioritize the sponsors. I just wanted to, it sounds a bit misleading, but by asking my kind of like the internal team first, they kind of feel like, oh, maybe there's something going to happen in these times. So if I don't and I just come back to them with a date or two, it's kind of unlikely they'd have thought about it and they might have had booked something in between. So it's a juggle, but yeah, I go back to them with a couple of dates. Hopefully it matches, and I say, okay, he's free on this exact day, so let's go today. And then everyone will hopefully go, okay, and then we can book it.
Okay. So since we're talking about a thing that actually happened, this isn't hypothetical. This is right. So when you went through this sequence, and you got the answer back from the sponsor, as you call them, did it end there? Did it match, and then we were done, or?
Yeah, it did. Sometimes when it didn't, it was an issue of maybe a person on our side couldn't turn up, but a lot of the times we don't say no to the dates the sponsors give us, really. So it really is kind of like, what can we do to fit that date that we're given? So it's not really a matter of, does it always fit? It's a matter of, we always have to make sure it fits.
Okay. So these situations, what would you say overall then again is the pain point in this case?
The pain point is me being the middleman and the going back and forth, I'd say, because you never really know for sure until the final bit, right, that everyone is free at that date and everyone's okay to meet. Yeah, because before then you're always just like praying that someone doesn't go, oh, actually I have a meeting there and I can't miss it.
So you describe this as this back and forth.
Yeah.
So is that time then essentially? That's
Yeah. Oh yeah. If something needs to move really quickly, getting responses takes forever. Especially when there's a lot of people and they're always busy. So when there's always this back and forth, it takes a lot of time. If, for example, you need a meeting to happen really quickly, like within a week, the back and forth might already take almost like 3 or 4 days.
So 3 to 4 days.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It seems like that's the kind of expected.
That's typical?
Yeah, typically it's like 3 to 4 days back and forth.
Okay.
But that's, that doesn't mean that we then get the meeting a couple of days later. It usually means we get a meeting a week and a half later.
Okay.
Yeah.
This thing that you described, how often do you do this, I'll call it this job to be done in your regular work?
The first example I gave, probably like 2-3 times a week, maybe.
Pardon?
2-3 times a week. The first
2-3 times
the first
a week.
example.
A week. Okay.
The second example, I mean, there are variations of it where sometimes it's just meeting management, sometimes it's just meeting potential sponsors. So those are more like once every month, maybe even less, maybe like once or twice a month, 1 to 2 times every 2 months, sorry. So like about between once and twice a month, not that often.
Okay.
The first one is a lot more often, I'd say.
All right. And how painful is this to you, and what kind of impact does it have on you?
I have a lot of other things to do, and it seems like anyone can just do it, but most people don't want to do it because it's very annoying. It's like, I don't have any skin in the game. I don't care if you're free then or free there. Like, I want people to just meet.
Yeah.
But when someone comes back and say, oh, actually, I can't do this, and that person really needs to be there, and I just spent the last 3 days getting, like 5 days down to 4, down to 3, down to 2, and then this person isn't free on either of those dates, you have to go back to the beginning and try again. So it's like really, it's kind of like, it just feels like you're not really using your time that well, but it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of energy to not be frustrated.
Okay. All right. Have you tried to look for any alternative solutions?
Yes, I have. Okay. So I looked at a couple of ones that isn't Calendly. There's one called, actually I can't remember what it's called. I think we were going to use it in one of our kind of events. It's like where everyone sees the same time slots and then they put their names down, and then if it matches, they pick that date. I mean, in the end, we ended up just not using it and using the manual way instead. Mostly because it wasn't, if one person doesn't use it, it becomes pointless, because then you still need that, manual interaction. And then if someone forgets to update one day, then it then again becomes pointless, because what you assume is, if you assume the platform is right and it isn't, it kind of wastes your whole time. So if you just ask the person on the first day, it would have just been, you know, okay from the beginning. But yeah, no, I have, but they're all kind of, like the function's very basic for a lot of them, you know, but it doesn't really work 100%.
Okay, okay. And just by the way, I should have asked you at the very beginning, but like, just in a nutshell, what's the context here? What is it that you do, and what's the organization? Like,
I work under him. This is a setup. He's my boss. He's the boss I was talking about, the one who always has to have meetings. Yeah, I work in the Sustainability and Entrepreneurship Center. So when I was talking about going to meet potential sponsors or kind of stakeholders, it was about either partners for a startup competition or sponsors for a acceleration program, something like that. But yeah.
okay, all right. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Okay. Give a round of applause, please. Okay, so hopefully you absorbed and got lots of nuggets of information and insights from him. So what we're going to do next is, I'd like you as teams to put together a customer journey map using sticky notes on your flip chart paper. So try to map out, you know, from the story he just gave, some rough structure, like what the sequence is and what the process is that he goes through to do his job to be done. And in this case, the job to be done is to schedule a meeting between multiple stakeholders. All right? So I'll give you 10 minutes to do that as a group, right? So you can discuss, and then on your flip chart, end up with a sort of a row or some formation of sticky notes to represent the journey that you just heard. Okay, 10 minutes, please. There you go. ครับ Okay, time's up. Time's up. And don't worry if it's not, there's no such thing as complete here, just kind of the best you can do in the time that you have. So the next step, just a very brief one, should only take you about 2 or 3 minutes, is to now identify and prioritize the top 1 to 3 pain points using some additional sticky notes. So just create a couple of notes and debate amongst yourselves and decide what are the top 1, 2, or 3 pain points that you identified from the journey. Okay, time's up. Time's up. So that completed kind of this really quick version of the define. Now we're going to go into ideate. So for this next step I'll explain. We're going to spend just 5 minutes where each person individually creates sketches of your own idea for if you were to create a mobile app to solve this problem. Okay? And what I mean by this, first few pages, it means like in your mind you're imagining just individually, maybe if I had an app and you go in and the first step is this, and then you see this page and you click here and click there, you're seeing this journey inside of this app that you're thinking of or imagining, okay? But you come up with the idea yourself on your own, so don't talk to your teammates, and just start drawing and sketching on the longer Post-its that look kind of like a cell phone, okay? And you just do as many as you can, and do not discuss, okay? So the room should be totally silent during this time. Don't worry about your drawing skills. It's not about being perfect. It's not making like a very elaborate design. It's just about sketching just enough so that you can eventually communicate your idea to your teammates when you talk about it later. All right? Any questions before we begin? Sure? All clear? Okay, 5 minutes, begin. If any teams run out of the long sticky notes, just raise your hand and we'll provide you with some more. Okay, time's up. Time's up. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to line up each person's ideas, your app ideas, in a row, in rows. So person number one, you'll kind of put the sticky notes in a line like that. Person number two, number three. So you have different rows representing each person. Just put those, paste them onto one of your flip chart papers, and then just have them ready, because we're going to have a next step after that. All right? So just go ahead and put those on for now. Pardon?
Can we put it on the chart?
Yes. Okay. So what happens now is you should sort of stand around your table, and let me explain what's going to happen. So basically, I'm going to give each person 1 minute. So I'm going to go like, okay, person number one, get ready to pitch your idea. In 1 minute. Ready? Go. Like that. Okay, and we'll set the timer, and then you go. And during that 1 minute, just one person, the person number one from your team, will kind of point to their ideas, right? And they'll just give your team a little tour of their idea. So you'll say, okay, this is the first page of my app, this is the concept, you go here, you click here, you do this, you see this information, you do this and this and that, and you're just explaining, you're pitching the concept to your teammates. Now, something that's super critical in this is that you sell your idea, but with no questions or comments. So the team should be completely silent. Don't give feedback, don't say this is good or this is bad, or ask questions. It's all about listening. You want to give 100% of your concentration and your listening to that person, right? Then once it's done, you'll hear the bell, and I'll say, okay, stop, stop, stop. Person number two, get ready to pitch, go. And we'll just do that until everybody's pitched. Okay? And make sure you do genuinely listen, because the information you get from what you learned from your friend is going to be important for the next step after this. All right? Okay, so person number one, get ready to pitch. Ready? Go. Okay, stop, stop. Person number 2, get ready to pitch. Person number 2, 1 minute, listen only, go. Okay, stop. Person number 3, get ready to pitch. Ready, go. Okay, stop. Just by the way, when we do it in the next couple of times, feel free to clap for your teammate when they're done pitching, all right? So we can hear. Okay, person number 4, I think we're at. Person number 4, get ready to pitch. Go. Okay, stop. Person number 5, get ready to pitch. Person number 5, ready, go. Stop. Do we have any tables with the person number 6? We do, right? Okay, person number 6, if you have one, get ready to pitch, go. Okay, stop. Do we have, does that cover everyone now? Are there any tables who have members who have not pitched? Okay, so 6 did it. Okay, good. So, now, here's another twist. This is a really, really cool, interesting part of design thinking, is we're going to give you another 5 minutes to ideate again. So what this means is you can take your original idea that you did for your app, right? You can change it if you want. You can change it a little bit, you can change it a lot. But one of the key things that is so interesting is you now have full permission to copy and integrate your friends' ideas. Now this is so different, right? Because one of the problems, I will mention here briefly, is like in our traditional way of collaboration out there in the world, we're very siloed. It's like your friend says something, so, oh, that's their idea, now you can't touch it, right? Or also when you talk, usually in a group, it's like one person dominates, one is quiet, and like there's all this sort of ownership. But the creativity that comes from having permission to borrow from each other's inspiration is really, really powerful. So go ahead and iterate. So in other words, revise your idea as much or as little as you want, and with full permission to copy from your friends. 5 minutes. Ready? Go. All right, stop please, stop. So this time, there's also a twist. Remember last time each person pitched for 1 minute? This time you will still do that, so each person will take turns pitching their revised idea for 1 minute. But then after that 1 minute, I'll say, okay, 1 more minute, we'll set the timer for feedback, for back and forth. So at that point, the team can ask questions, can give comments, you can communicate. All right? So we'll do that one at a time for each team member. So oh yeah, I guess you have to put the stickies on, get them ready, get them lined up and ready to start pitching. So I'll give you a minute to do that. Please set up your stickies. Okay, so person number 1, get ready for your 1 minute pitch. The team would listen only for that first minute, okay? So pitch only, person number 1, go. Okay, stop. Now 1 minute for Q&A, for questions and feedback for person number 1. Go. Okay, stop please, stop. For person number 2, this time we're going to go ahead and just combine the time so that I don't have to stop you in the middle of it. So we'll just go ahead and time 2 minutes. So the person number 2 will pitch. As soon as they're done pitching, you can go right into Q&A and finish with that. Okay? Ready? 2 minutes, go. stop, stop. Person number three, same thing. The person pitches, and then you go right into Q&A. Ready, go. Okay, stop please, stop please. I think we're on to number 4. So person number 4, get ready to pitch, go. Please, stop please. Person number 5, get ready, go. Okay, stop please, stop please. So I think we're at the last person now, number 6. Get ready to pitch. Go. All right, that's it. Stop please. Stop. Okay, so for this step, what you're going to do now is you're going to vote on the favorite, basically the favorite screens, right? So if you look at all of them, all the screens that you have in front of you, you can take the little star stickers, and each team member can cast just 3 votes, all right? And you can put the star on a particular screen. Yes, it could be your own if you want, or it could be your teammates. That's up to you. And you can put more than 1 star on 1 screen. That's up to you. But basically, just use all your 3 stars per person to show what you really like the most out of all the different ideas you have shared with each other. And once you're done casting your votes, I suggest some of you might want to take a photo of your flip chart, because this is actually kind of amazing how much you guys were able to create in a pretty short amount of time. Yes.
Ponytails. He's the founder of a wastewater startup.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, I know him from KP. KP Pangus Company. KP Venture Studio. He was in our accelerator a few years ago. A really cool idea. Yeah.
Came through ours as well.
Yeah, really. He already has a solid business. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I knew I recognized him.
Yeah, spot on. You probably recognize you did.
I look like everyone else. So.
Oh yeah, yeah, so do I. Pardon? Oh, thank you, thank you. You always have this cool style.
No, thanks, man.
All right, folks. So, just a quick comment again before we go on. I just really want you to sort of appreciate, like, again, look at the thing on your table and just think to yourself, you guys produced all that in just a matter of minutes, right? Normally, this is not how most people do creativity and innovation and design, right? They usually go take a walk in the woods and think things over for days or weeks, but like, in just a few minutes, look at how much, how diverse your ideas were and creative and really, really interesting. And then look at what happened when you started allowing yourselves to borrow from each other. I went around and listened to the tables and I was just really amazed. And people could like appreciate each other's ideas and build on them. So truly amazing and good job. So for the next step, we now go to prototype, right? So what happens here? Actually, อันนี้สามารถเปิดวิดีโอคลิปได้ไหมครับ? So I want you to see an example of a paper prototype, or two examples. So just click on the YouTube link, Ted, please. And it should open up. You might have to go to that window, though, after you do it. And you don't need to have sound, by the way. You know. So while they're setting it up, just to explain, what you're going to do next is you're going to synthesize basically all the stuff that you did. Oh, okay, here we go. All right, so here's an example of a paper prototype. This is all done with paper. Right, really cute. So no technology needed. You don't need to hire software developers or engineers. You just need to be able to draw. This is an app finding toilets, I guess, in your area, right? Right, you can see the little icons down below. All right, and then let's take a quick glance at the other video. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but just for a little flavor. This one. Oh, it looks like it hasn't been turned into a hyperlink. Okay, actually don't. Okay. Ah, yep. Just drag the window around. There you go. I've seen a video where they actually have the person making sounds. They go boop, 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 like that while they're typing. So these are what's called wireframes, which means like it's just the outline of the idea. And they don't even have to fill in all the detail, right? Okay, okay, you can just stop there. Thank you. Okay, and then back to the slides, please. So what we're going to do is you guys have already come up with all these ideas. You've kind of voted on the things that you see are the highlights, right? So now what you're going to do as a team is turn it all into just one basic design. And because I know that when you did the exercise, you sort of sketched very quickly or just used words for the most part. But now you're going to make it look more like a little closer to an actual app. Doesn't have to be perfect, right? The first one with the toilets, I think, was probably even more perfect than necessary. Something kind of like this. The goal is just enough so that when you show it to someone else, they can somewhat understand what it is, and they can interact with it. And so I'm going to explain, I'm going to jump ahead and tell you what's going to happen. After you work together and design a couple pages of this final app, I'm going to have you borrow someone from another team, right? So like this table might invite one person from that table to come over, and they're going to play with your app on paper, and they'll kind of look at it without you explaining anything as much as possible, okay? And then you're going to get some really good feedback to see what they think and what they understand about it. So I'm telling you this now so you understand what the purpose of what you're about to do is, right? So it's to look kind of like an app, enough so that you can show your guest that's going to come talk to you, and then they'll be able to experience it, and hopefully you'll get feedback. Do they like it? What do they like or not like? Would they use it? Would it be effective, et cetera, right? They'll be your user or your customer. So here's the actual thing. So we'll give you just 15 minutes as a team. Synthesize your ideas into one final design and prototype. It doesn't have to be the whole thing, because I understand 15 minutes is not that much time. So it can be like just 4 or 5, as many screens as you can do. I would recommend you sort of divide the work somehow or find a way to work together so you can get it done. All right, 15 minutes beginning now. Okay, I'm gonna stop it just slightly early, just because of time. I mean, we're almost there anyways, but so let's stop now. Stop. So for the next step, what I'd like you to do is each table, someone from your table, please step over to another table and invite someone from one of your neighbors, one person from one of your neighboring teams to come and be your guest interviewee. All right? So just go grab someone, anyone you want from another table, and, and pull them over to your table. Just one person. And what we're going to do is we're going to let that person, this guest, take a look at your app design. Now, technically, I need to let you know that really the right way to do this, there's a certain way of doing it, but we don't have enough time for me to show you. So my quick mini hint is, at first, try to let them look at it without you explaining anything. And just let them, and tell them to please think out loud, and just tell you, what do they think this is? And explain what they think each one is, each screen is, and what they would press and what they would do. And then after they do that for a little bit, of course, you can eventually step in and then explain and have a full discussion. Your objective in this test is to observe their behavior, how they react, and try to pay special attention to what they do. Oh, or no, sorry, ignore this. This is sorry, wrong one. It's this. So you take detailed notes, but you're probably not going to have that much time. So just really observe them, observe their actions, their words, and their emotions, right? And then at the end, ask for final feedback, what they like, what they dislike, questions and ideas and suggestions. All right? So let's do 5 minutes, please. Go. All right, stop please. Okay. Very cool, very cool. Okay, have a seat and let's talk. So, we've only got 6 minutes left, so I'm going to have to kind of compress the end here. So normally what you would do at this point is you just had one interview, right? And you probably got some interesting feedback because users never behave exactly the same way you expect, and they don't interpret everything you did the same way, right? And this is normal. And so the key is you do this, and if you were to continue, you'd probably interview a few more people, then you come back and you iterate. You would have a meeting where you review your results, you discuss together, and you say, we might need to change this, we need some onboarding here, some instructions, this function is too confusing, blah, 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 blah. And then you change your design a little bit, you iterate it, and then you go back and you do the same interview, you do the interview again, and you repeat. All right? So that's what we would have done if we would had more time. All right? So, reflection and discussion. Now, putting it all together, what you guys just did in just under 2 hours was one quick compressed cycle of all this. We did the beginning where we empathize, where we listen to our target, one example of our target user, to understand their situation, their user journey, their pain points, et cetera, right? From that, we then defined, or we sat down and analyzed the situation and tried to extract our common understanding of what we just learned from that person or group of people, and then to figure out what is it that we want to try to solve, what's the pain point, et cetera, right? And then you ideated. That was the majority of the time we spent today was actually on the ideation part. It's actually one of the coolest parts because it's where you had all this creativity happen. And amazingly, again, it was between people. In many cases, I was blown away. I thought this was a team of like best friends. Apparently, you guys only just met today. But the way you're working together, it's like you already know each other very well. And so, and I see multiple teams where you're respecting each other's ideas, and it's positive feedback, and you're in a positive way copying and stealing from each other, right? Some people like to use the word idea sex, is kind of what you're having. Your ideas are combining and creating idea babies. So that's just really, really cool, right? And this is so different from the old-fashioned way of thinking where people have ownership over their ideas, right? Just a quick comment, by the way, is like, one of the keys in doing this type of thing in an organization is having multiple functions at the table. It shouldn't be engineer, 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 or designer, designer, designer. You should have like an engineer, designer, a business person, an accounting person, an operations person. The more diversity you have, the more likely you are to generate innovative babies, if you will. All right? So this was the overall path. So I did say when we announced this event, one of the things I was going to touch on briefly is about some of the pitfalls, because I've mentored thousands of teams now, both startups and corporate innovation teams, and I've seen teams that have gone through this kind of process, and I've encountered some of the problems that can also come with it. As much as there are great things, there are also issues that turn up a lot, and so I want to be able to share some of that with you. But just before I do want to open up to you any kind of comments or questions or reflections from what you just went through so far. How did you feel overall about what you just did?
Any comments? Questions?
I just wondered how much time or how long should we gather ideas together? Is it not too short or not too long to roll away?
Right. There's no. So the question is like, how much time should you devote to like gathering the ideas and to each of these stages? There's no one set correct answer. It is a bit relative. You know, you have to look at your resources and other constraints as well. So there's no one right answer. However, something that is inherent in it in general is you do want to have some frequency and speed. So for example, if you were sitting around developing something or researching or being in one of these stages for months and months, that's typically typically too long. And you should really be able to go through one of these cycles within, ideally in most cases, within just like 1 or 2 weeks is really nice. Now the trick there, that may sound not unrealistic for some things that you might think, wow, the thing we're building is so big. But the trick there is to chop it into pieces. So you make the small version, you make just the core. This is what some people call lean startup, and you build what's called an MVP. So you don't do the full function version of your product, but just the core basic functions. And that way you get to go through the loop, and you get to talk to a real customer or user, and you get feedback, which often changes the way you think and look at things a lot. So you want that opportunity to happen frequently. This is also related to something called agile. So a part of a characteristic of agile is this looping and iterating quickly, and each time connecting to the customer so that you get a sense of what direction you're going in. Right? So one of the things kind of missing from this whole thing is like, you do all this and then you go back and you do it again. So in a way there should be almost like this arrow, and the arrow should be very, very high frequency. The faster you can do this and the more efficiently and with sort of a certain mindfulness and focus, the better your chances of succeeding. Yes, please.
Some comments.
Yes.
I like the atmosphere from the room and the group when we are designing together.
Yes.
There are some of the observation we had maybe among the group as well about the way to do prototypes.
Yes.
The first one is we are curious. What does it mean? And curious whether it works or not. And another thing of our thinking ideas and mindset is outward thinking. So we need to think about others,
Yes.
because it's their difficulty, it may not mine difficulty.
That's
But
right.
that's why they try to do it. Or if we like to prototype, let's try to be another person,
Yes.
whom are the target group,
Yes.
whether or not they like it. Then that's why in our group, in the first time we are prototype by function, but later we customize it to have a friendly users application on the face. So
Yes.
that's why our mission is more accomplished. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Excellent. Wow, great points. Very nice. You're exactly right. And this, no matter how much we think we know, like even when we try to be in the other person's shoes, we're almost always still wrong in some way. And that's okay. That's okay, right? You start out with your own assumption, but the whole thing that's so important is actually talking to those users or customers. And we did it in the beginning with the empathize, and then we did it with the testing. As long as you get to actually talk to them, you'll get to figure out what the reality is. Right? There's a saying in one of the most successful and famous startup accelerators in the world called Y Combinator. And they said 2 pieces of advice for startups, all startups, are just 2 key things that are most important for you to do. Talk to users and build your product. That's it. And all the other things that we tend to focus on in the traditional business world, PR and marketing and growth and all these things, they're all premature. Because in a startup, you need to do these 2 things first until you get to a certain point. Then it makes sense to do the other fancy stuff. Right? Okay. Oh, yes, please.
Sorry. I think the most important thing is sometimes you come up with a new idea as well. So one stepping stone from my group, I think I'm lucky enough to have everyone who's qualified to be here so far with a coffee. But the thing is, they adding something. When you mention about something, then we come up with a new idea as well on the way, instead of like stealing the idea or integrating. Like if someone mentioned about generating the code, then I was thinking about virtual meeting straight away, like, oh, why not? Because that is the key thing this day. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to mix and match and then just adding a new idea into it. But my question would be, is it a part of market research as well, or when did you introducing the market research afterward? So you come with the, because what your customer experience, so I always say this is a sales center as in generating from the customer as a center. But my thing is, there's a various of application and products at the market. So you might not capture everything within one interview, right? So
That's correct, right. Okay, so your questions have to do with market research and also sort of this trade-off of like when you do this process, you're looking at one person at a time, are you missing the bigger picture? Okay, so a couple things is that, first of all, if you try to go after an entire market at a time, which a lot of startups do, the risk is that it can be so unfocused that you end up not satisfying anyone enough. And your goal in the end, of course, is to address larger markets and large groups of people. It's just that when given the resources that you have, your limitations, and your time, in particular at the beginning, you want to start small. And usually you want to try to pick those first people that you're talking to. Let's say the person we interview in the beginning, in the empathy interview, or the people we ended up testing with. Technically, you should be focusing on people that you call an early adopter. And this comes from some kind of analysis of the market and saying, out of the whole market, is there some segment of the market that is the most juicy, the one that has the most pain and probably the most desperate to have your product if you were to create it? And you work with them first because for several reasons. Because if it does work, you'll get that traction quickly, you'll be able to get some momentum, you'll be able to move, and then you can gradually expand. You can think of an example of Facebook. When they started, they focused on Harvard, and then they moved incrementally to other Ivy League schools and other high-profile schools. Today, they're everywhere, right? But they didn't begin by going everywhere. They began with a really concentrated group first, so they get that momentum and a strong use case. So you have to balance between these two things. Now, even with all that said, if you were to do this sort of this methodology that we're discussing in a real acceleration program, you would eventually, after like a couple of cycles of this, we would need to step back and still get a sanity check and say, where are you heading? Are you trying to build something that can be VC funded? And so you're gonna have to look at things like potential market size, market growth, scalability. So that gets outside of the discussion of our workshop today. So what you're talking about is important. There is a place for it. It's part of the pitfalls, actually, that I was going to mention as well. So yes, yes. All right, but kind of have different compartments in your brain. When you're doing this thing, try to engage in it in this way at first, and then you can switch on the other part to look at the bigger picture.
Thank you so much for the questions and comments. So we will have like some minutes so for the last question or comment. Does anyone has anything in your mind? Okay, sorry, last question.
Okay, well, first of all, I think I like the idea of like we get to listen. You know, we work on it and we listen to others, you know, starting from the empathize process. I think I like the first one. And when we listen, we get to open our mind to other people's ideas. I think I learn from that, from like many people in this room. I think I love that part. And the second part is like, you don't have to be perfect. You know, you just kind of work cycle by cycle, just like you build like brick one by one. And the more you do, the more you become more confident. And I feel that like many of you, or like at least like myself, I didn't feel that I would be able to make it like this far, but you know, now I'm more confident to go back and do some other projects for myself as well. Yeah.
That's beautifully said. Wow, thank you so much for saying that. And the thing that you said at the very beginning about listening, that's it. That's it. I mean, if there's any one word, it is listening. You listen there, you listen there, you listen between your team members. So the number one thing is about listening. So wow, great, great. Thank you so much. So just a quick wrap up, because I don't want to make it false advertising. So I did say that I'd talk about the pitfalls. So I'm going to just stick them up on the screen really quickly and give you a fast version. If you'd like to know more, you're always welcome to come up if you have time afterwards, or you can even contact me directly. Happy to talk to you anytime, all right? So this process is a beautiful, wonderful one. Now, I have, however, inherited a lot of teams that have come to me who've gone through this sort of design thinking type of stuff, but they're still suffering. There are corporations even who've built entire business units using this sort of methodology, and they were stuck. And a lot of times I'm brought in to help solve that problem. And I've iterated that as a pain point many, many times. So I've discovered that the thing is, you can do what we just went through today, but there's some things that you can miss, like validating that the problem is worth solving. Not only in terms of, first of all, the pain level. So the thing that we were talking to Koichi about at the beginning when we interviewed him, like, is that a big enough pain point? How serious is it? What's the impact of it really? I know I asked him a little bit about that, but like it's not enough, and there's a way to analyze this systematically that's beyond the scope of this workshop. But this is one of the things that I normally teach and train to get people to figure out, is this really a problem worth solving? Both at the individual user level and then at the organizational level, impact on the organization, and then also what's called the value proposition. So this is a big thing that people can miss. You can do all these motions and still create some value and creativity, but you might not be doing something that's worth doing. So that's something that should be looked at. Lack of focus. A lot of times there are people, in Thai we use the word phung sang. There's which means scattered and unfocused. There's a high risk that when you use this sort of method, sometimes you end up tackling too many different problems, too many different pain points, too many different jobs to be done. And as an investor, when we're doing like venture capital investment and looking at startups, that doesn't work. You can't be a company that's trying to solve 10 different things at the same time, especially in early stage startup. You need sharp focus on a really big problem. So there's a way to do that as well. And then not enough detail in the empathy interview. The reason I did the interview for you, I normally would want to teach it to you and let you do it yourself, but it takes a few hours to really deliver. But you probably got a little sense that it's not your usual like a survey or asking scripted questions. It's quite delicate thing. And so this is a skill set in its own. How do you interview effectively? And if you get this wrong, everything else kind of doesn't matter, because then you're not solving the right problem, or you're not really addressing the people's real needs. So huge success factor is about how to do proper and effective empathy interviews. The UX testing technique, the thing that we did at the end, which I didn't really even get a chance to fully train you, but it's, again, most people when you interview, they interview in the wrong way. Our natural inclination is to interview incorrectly. So if you really want to learn to do this well, I suggest you either read about or learn about usability testing. It's a way to interview that gives you the results that you need and the insight that you need, so you're not biased. And the last one is not enough rapid iteration, this agile process. Whatever you do, don't do this thing one cycle and you're done. That would defeat the purpose. As I love the way you said, you build on this stuff, right? So this one cycle you did today is just this one little piece, one little brick, and the trick is doing it again and again and again rapidly. And you will find yourself somewhere weeks or months later at a place that you might not have ever expected, but you're actually solving a real problem, you're creating real value, and on your way to building an innovation project or business. All right? So I'm 11 minutes over, so sorry for being a little bit late. Thank you so much for coming. Really loved your energy and engagement, and hope to see you again sometime. All right? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much ค่ะคุณแซมคุณสุรวัตรพรหมโยธินนะคะ our Director of Sustainability and Entrepreneurship Center. So today we would like to yes ขอบคุณค่ะ so please evaluate this event by this scanning. So next our event, because we really like to be in design thinking more, but we have another meeting in the luncheon talk. If you are already registered, you can go after this. But next month we will have another event. Please follow Sasin SEC Facebook, and then you will see the lot of events coming up. And this is the Facebook page. So for the next month, we'll be investing in startups to impact the SDGs. We can, okay. Wait a second. So this one will be luncheon talk for today for the people who are already registered. And for the next month, we'll be investing in startups to impact the SDGs. And please welcome to register with a QR code. And if you have any question or comment or anything, please suggest as the feedback and also at the Facebook page. Thank you so much for everyone, and we would like to have another meeting, next event again. Thank you.